This evening, we're going to be treated to Navigating the Individualized Transition Plan, How Parents Can Drive Success. And we welcome back, no stranger to the Connections California screen, Luisamaria Castillo. Luisa is currently the area manager for the San Diego region of PHP's sister agency, Team of Advocates for Special Kids, commonly known as TASK. And you also may recognize Luisa because a year or so ago, she was the coordinator of Connections California and one of the chief architects for especially the Spanish section. So Luisa developed her passion for educating and advocating for Spanish-speaking families whose loved ones are approaching transition to adulthood and or receiving adult services during over a decade of service as a bilingual resource specialist at TASK. So I am going to turn it over to Luisa for what promises to be an engaging presentation. Thanks for being here, and thanks, Luisa.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. That was a warm welcome. So let me choose my, okay. All right, so here we are. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again, Alyssa, for having me. I'm so happy to be back. My name is Luisamaria Castillo. You can call me Luisa. And as Alyssa mentioned, I oversee the areas of San Diego and Imperial counties for TASK. We're a parent training and information center, just as Parents Helping Parents is. So we're pretty much sisters. And we serve the counties of Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Imperial. Here's a little visual where you can see the areas that we serve in orange. There's 7 PTIs. You'll see parents helping parents there as well. And our mission statement pretty much is to educate and empower people with disabilities and their families. We're not advocates or attorneys, so we do not advise parents as to the nature of a child's disability or needs, nor do we recommend placements or therapies. So then what are we, right? We're family support specialists. So we provide individual telephone support to families. So any questions parents can have, you can call us and a family support specialist will assist you. We provide individual IEP consultations to review documentation, prepare you for meetings. We offer educational workshops as well. So you can always find those in our website and register for them through our Zoom accounts. So feel free, you have a lot to choose from with Parents Helping Parents and TASK. We also have a tech department. So it's anything with assistive technology, which you're going to be looking here at the next slide. If you have any questions regarding that, we have staff that provide technology information, in our Brea office. So you can call for more information and the staff will provide you, with online appointments, assistive technology consultations, and webinars. Now we're going to be beginning our webinar, Navigating ITPs for the Individualized Transition Plan, How Parents Can Drive Success. So what will we cover? We're going to be talking about transition services under the law of IDEA, as well as the Individualized Transition Plan. We're going to talk about age of majority and how you as parents can prepare for that. And we're also going to be diving into the laws that protect your youth as they exit from high school. And we're going to be sharing some tips that can help you empower your youth and teach them those self-advocacy skills that they need. I'm sure many of the parents that are here today have school-age children that are probably, getting ready, preparing for the transition to adulthood. So you're in the right place here tonight. Now, here are some common acronyms that are used by IEP team members when discussing the individual transition plan and adult services, and some that you will hear throughout tonight's presentation. So if you're getting used to these terms, let me tell you that the transition timeline that Alyssa has created with Connections California is a wonderful tool that is going to help you familiarize yourself. So download it if you haven't already. I'm sure Alyssa is going to be sharing it through the chat today. So get familiarized with them. Some of them that you're going to be hearing today, IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the ITP, which means Individual Transition Plan, DSPS, the Disabled Students Program and Services at Colleges, or DOR, which is one of the agencies, Department of Rehabilitation. So take your time with these terms. So let's start by defining what transition services are under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And these services are designed to help students with disabilities move successfully from school to life after high school. These are a coordinated set of activities that focus on improving both academic skills and real-world abilities needed for adulthood. The goal is to prepare students for post-secondary opportunities, which can include higher education or vocational training, employment, adult programs and community involvement, and independent living skills when appropriate. In short, transition services are all about equipping students with the tools that they need to succeed beyond high school, based on those individual strengths, needs, and goals. Now, what are some types of transition services? One of them is instruction and education. These can be personalized educational goals to build skills that are needed for future success. Related services, so any additional supports like counseling, transportation, therapy to help students transition smoothly. It can also be community experiences, so any real world exposure to community settings, activities, resources. Schools usually collaborate with different agencies in order to give this real world exposure in the community setting. And these can be partnerships through the Department of Rehabilitation, like the Transition Partnership Program known as the TPP, which supports employment readiness. It can be partnerships with regional centers, workability programs, and California career centers, independent living centers, and youth employment opportunity programs. So it can involve different collaborations. Now, as part of these services, there can also be employment skills development. So any job training, internships, workplace readiness programs that are going to help build, for employment skills. Adult living objectives. This can be preparation for life after school, including independent living, transportation, or financial literacy, daily living skills. So everyday tasks such as self-care, being able to meal prep or managing the money, all of that is daily living skills. And then vocational assessments when needed, and I think they're always needed. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in the next slides, but vocational assessments help identify a student's vocational strength and interest in order to guide career planning. So this is very important for setting goals in transition. Now, let's bring it all together and see these services shape the ITP. So in the next slides, we're going to be talking about the transition plan. Okay, so transition services under IDEA, which we have mentioned previously, are designed to support students as they move forward from school to adulthood, right? And these services are tailored to each student's needs, to their strengths, to their interests. And the ITP is that tool that is going to bring these services together. It ensures a coordinated set of activities that is aimed at achieving post-school goals. Now, when does it start? According to IDEA, the law, the IEP document must include the ITP when the student reaches the age of 16. However, this plan can always be incorporated earlier if the child's specific needs require it and it's approved upon by the IEP team. Now, here's something to know about. Starting July of 2025, schools in California must include transition planning in a student's Individualized Education Program, or the IEP, when they begin high school, or by age 16 at the latest. So right now, the federal law says 16, but in California, starting July, it's when the student begins high school. So this can look maybe 13, 14 years of age. So this is something that you can start bringing up to your IEP team. And there's a bill. The bill is AB 438. So if you want to look for that information, we can certainly share the information on the chat. Now, when is the IEP written? So this is written at yearly IEP meetings or at a special IEP meeting. And it includes, or it outlines the student's interests and aspirations for their future after basic education, whether it's continuing with higher education at a university, whether this is a technical school or obtaining their first job, or depending on the disability, receiving services from agencies such as the regional center or the Department of Rehabilitation. Okay, keep in mind that all of these goals are aligned in three main areas. Okay, education and training, which is academic or vocational preparation. It can be employment, which is career exploration and job readiness. And the third one is independent living skills, which is daily living skills and community participation. And we can also throw in there self-advocacy, because this is very crucial. And we're going to be talking more about it in the next slides. But self-advocacy skills are very needed, in order for the student to be able to exit out of high school and be able to integrate into the community. Now, when is it needed? When is the ITP, reviewed? So the ITP is reviewed yearly at the IEP meeting, and this is in order to update goals and adjust supports. But let's see how all of this comes together in the ITP, okay? So what are transition goals? Let's take a look at these. Transition goals are measurable statements that describe what a student will achieve after high school. These goals guide the student in building skills that are necessary to attain their post-secondary aspirations, whether it be higher education, whether it be employment or independent living. This provides a clear roadmap for the student's transition from school to adult life. And it ensures that the student gains both academic and functional skills that are going to be tailored to their needs and goals. Now, how are transition goals developed? Vocational or transitional assessments are that key piece that we had mentioned, right? These are necessary in order to help identify the strengths, the areas of need, and the interests. And typical assessments, typical assessment procedures can include interest inventories to identify the student's career and preferences, skills assessments to evaluate the student's strengths and areas of development related to work and daily living skills. Now, other type of assessments can be career aptitude tests, and these are to understand the student's abilities, how they align with potential careers. Other assessments can be functional vocational evaluations, and these assess real-world job skills in work environments. For example, job shadowing or internships, okay? There can be adaptive behavior assessments to measure the independence and daily living, social interactions, and community skills. Now, there's this great YouTube channel that I came across, a YouTube video from the UC Davis Mind Institute. And the topic of this was understanding transition assessment. And it talked about mandates and practices that lead to successful outcomes. I'm going to be sharing the link after, but it's a great video that goes more into depth, the different types of assessments that can be requested. So I'm going to make sure to share it after so that you guys can look it over, because once again, transition assessments are very important in order to be able to design customized goals. Now, during the ITP, or the Individualized Transition Plan meeting, the team sets clear, measurable goals and objectives that are going to align with the students' post-secondary outcomes. And these goals are reviewed and adjusted yearly at these IEP meetings, right? Now, what are some examples of academic and functional goals? Remember, I am by no means anybody to recommend anything to your child, but I just want to set examples of how these can sound, but these are all going to be tailored according to your child's needs. So it's important that you bring these up, with your IEP team. So let's say that the student aims to attend community college, okay? It can be something like, by the end of the school year, John, let's use the name John, will write a 5-paragraph essay free of grammatical and spelling errors using a word processor with a spell checker. Now, the student is preparing for employment. It can be within 6 months. John will complete job applications online and in person and practice job interviews with the vocational counselor. Okay? Or what about when we're developing functional goals? These goals are designed to enhance independence in daily living and community participation. And remember that functional goals can address different areas. They can address motor skills, so enhancing physical coordination and mobility. They can address social interaction and communication, so developing effective communication skills for building relationships and navigating these social situations. It can be personal life skills, like learning essential self-care activities such as dressing, grooming, eating, managing personal hygiene. Then there could also be community skills, like acquiring the ability to use public transportation, to shop independently and interact within the community. So this can look very different to each student. And functional goals are very important because they ensure that students with developmental delays acquire practical skills that are necessary for everyday life. They promote that autonomy and improve their quality of life by enabling them to engage more fully in their communities. And the ultimate aim is to help students achieve a level of self-sufficiency that is going to allow them to live and work as independently as possible. Now, how can we as parents effectively monitor and adjust these goals to ensure that students have success? What can you do? Well, something that parents can look after is review the students' achievements and challenges during annual IEP meetings, collect feedback from teachers, vocational counselors, and parents. You guys can also provide this feedback, and this is going to allow us to get a comprehensive view of the student's development. Also, the use of progress reports, performance assessments that are going to be able to measure the students' advancements towards their goals. And something important, we were talking earlier about transition assessments. And when we request a transition assessment, it doesn't mean that it's a one-time and that's it. Transition assessments can be requested throughout the years in high school in order to be able to measure that advancement towards their towards the goals, that are being worked on. So remember that these performance assessments can be requested, in order to adjust these goals. Now, when do we adjust these goals? We're going to go over a few things that can help you determine if a goal needs to be adjusted. If the student masters a skill earlier than expected, then you can adjust that goal so that there can be a more advanced level. If the student faces unexpected challenges, maybe modifying the approach or providing additional supports. Or if there's changes in the student's interest or aspiration, like, for example, a shift from attending community college to now seeking direct employment, that should be reflected in the goals. So remember, parents, that if it's okay that goals need to be adjusted, because it's about meeting the students' needs and supporting their growth. So ongoing communication and collaboration with the school team is going to keep the transition plan effective and relevant. So now that we understand how transition goals can guide a student's journey, let's look at the services that support the achievement of these goals. And these services can provide those necessary resources and the experiences to be able to help students gain the skills that they need for success beyond high school. Okay, so let's take a look at those. We went over what transition services are, but once again, under IDEA, they are designed to support students as they move from high school into adult life, right? And these services align with their individual goals in education and employment and an independent living. Their services selected in the ITP must be based on their strengths, on their interests, on their needs, and they have to ensure that they gain the necessary skills to reach those aspirations. So the IEP team collaborates, to determine which services are going to best support the student's transition. Now let's break down a little bit of these services, okay? As you can see here, Each of the listed services on the slide plays a critical role in preparing students for after high school. Specialized academic instruction supports students with disabilities and accessing the general ed curriculum, while it also builds skills for college, for career and independence. For example, let's say a student is planning to attend a community college. They might receive additional academic instruction so that they can write and research skills to prepare the coursework. Or let's say college awareness and preparation. This can help students explore higher education options, understand maybe admissions requirements, and develop necessary academic and life skills. For example, students may receive guidance in applying to colleges, completing financial aid forms, and accessing disability services on campus. Okay, then there's career awareness and planning. So this introduces students to different career paths, like workplace expectations, job training opportunities. And here in California, students can use different tools, to explore careers that are based on their interest and their abilities. Self-advocacy, which is one that we mentioned, okay, this teaches students how to speak up for their needs, to understand their rights, to request accommodations in the education setting or in the workplace. So a student with, for example, a learning disability can be trained to advocate for extended test time or note-taking assistance in college or in job training programs. So this can be useful. Now, work experience is another area, and this provides real-world exposure to employment. So it can help students build soft skills, responsibility, or workplace readiness. So a student may be able to participate in these paid internships, volunteer work, or school-based programs that are going to gain those hands-on experiences. And then we have job coaching. Job coaching is individualized support to help them learn job tasks, workplace expectations, develop professional behavior. And a student, for example, may receive on-site job coaching at a retail store in order to develop customer service skills. So remember, all of these different types of supports or services can be done with the help of collaboration with other agencies. So we're going to talk about how this is important in our next slide. Okay, so we've talked about key services, remember, that are available to support transition goals, but how can families and educators work together to ensure that students get the most out of these services? And a key part of this process is making sure that right people are at the table, right, during these IEP or ITP meetings. So let's go over who should be involved, why their role is important. Okay, so here's a breakdown of who should be in those meetings and their role. The student. So the school district is legally required to invite the student to their own ITP meeting by providing a written notice. And this is very important because we're talking here about the student's future. We're talking here about, what they want to do, their aspirations. So wouldn't it be common sense, that we involve our student? And maybe later you can ask yourselves, but is it okay that I involve them? Does it matter, that they have more disabilities, that maybe they're gonna need more support when growing? That's completely fine, but even with any type of self-advocacy, no matter what level of support is given, it's important to include the student. We talk about self-determination, about, parent-centered, person-centered planning. It's all with that focus on the student. So it's important that they're there because they are the center of the plan. Their input about goals, strengths, and interests is going to help shape realistic and meaningful transition services. And this is also a chance for them to practice those self-advocacy skills, by sharing what they need for their future. Other important members are parents, family members. You guys play a crucial role in ensuring that the students' needs and preferences are reflected in the plan. So you guys can contribute by providing insight to their strengths, their challenges, their aspirations. You want to ask for specific services or support if needed, and ensure that the plan the transition plan is going to include those realistic and culturally appropriate goals. Now, who else should be there? Special education teacher. They can ensure that these transition services are aligned with the students' IEP goals and accommodations. And they can also provide insight as to how their disability may impact their transition into college, work, or independent living. A general ed teacher can also, share how the student is functioning in the general ed setting and what kind of supports can help them with higher education or in the workplace environment. Now, other agencies can also be crucial, in providing insight. We talk about Department of Rehabilitation, regional centers, other agencies. Why should we invite them? Well, for example, the Department of Rehabilitation can support students who want to work by providing vocational training, job coaching, and post-secondary support. Regional centers can help students with developmental disabilities access services like independent living skills training, employment programs, or adult day programs. And other agencies, dependent on the student's needs, can also provide supports like college disability support offices, workforce development programs, or independent living centers can also be involved. So you guys can request, anytime you would want a person or an agency to be involved, you guys can, request that they're attending to these meetings so that they can contribute in the transition planning process. And students, remember, students should be actively involved in their own transition planning, even if they're hesitant at first, because sometimes that's the issue, that maybe they're the ones that are hesitant to be there. This meeting is a great opportunity to build those self-advocacy skills. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be there the whole portion of the meeting. Even if you start by having them there just to introduce themselves, to say something about their likes or their dislikes, their strengths, their interest. So this is very important. And collaboration between schools, families, and outside agencies is very important to ensure, that the student has access to all of the available resources out there. Okay, so now that we know who should be at these meetings, let's talk about one of the most important discussions that can actually happen during these meetings. And that's determining the student's graduation pathway. Whether a student is working toward a diploma, a certificate of completion, it's essential for families, educators, and service providers to collaborate so that, the best decision is made for the student's future. So what we're going to do right now is look at different options available. And remember that these are discussions that have to take place at your IEP, ITP meetings. So if you want to dive in a little deeper into what these options are, what is going to be the best fit for my child, we have included a list of resources that can help you. I included a comparison chart, diploma comparison chart, among the 3 that we're going to be talking about. Also a guide to a standard diploma based on a modified curriculum. And I also included a PowerPoint, which talks about this alternative pathways to a diploma in California. So that could be useful information that will help you make an informed decision. So the standard diploma, this is awarded when a student meets all state and district course requirements with or without accommodations. Okay, that's what it is. And a modified curriculum diploma, which is the new pathway, this allows students to earn a standard diploma using a modified curriculum, as long as the modifications are aligned with state standards. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it in the next slide. And then there's the certificate of completion, which is an alternative for students that are following a functional skills-based curriculum, not a diploma, but allows participation and also in graduation ceremonies. But let's take a closer look at this new diploma pathway and how it benefits students with exceptional needs. All right, so this new pathway provides additional opportunities for students with significant cognitive disabilities to earn a diploma, and it's called the AB 181. It introduces a new high school diploma option that is specifically designed for students with exceptional needs, and the option is available for students who began the 9th grade in the 2022 to 2023 school year or later. So students can graduate using this new pathway. And to be eligible, the student must be able to participate in the California Alternate Assessment, the CAA, which is an assessment aimed at students with significant cognitive disabilities. Now, the student must complete courses that are aligned with state standards, but based on modified content standards in order to meet the state level course requirements. Okay, and remember, this route offers an alternative for those students who cannot access a diploma through traditional pathways, providing a viable way to be able to obtain a high school diploma. And if you have more specific questions in regards to this, we do have resources and material that we can provide so that you can inform yourself and bring it up with your IEP team if needed. Now, whether a student graduates with a diploma or ages out of special education services at 22, having a clear record of their functional strength is essential, for their future success. And that's why the summary of performance, known as the SOP, comes in. This document, what it is that it provides a detailed summary of the student's achievements and recommendations to help them navigate their post-secondary goals. So this is a document that must be completed during a student's final school year and secondary education. It's prepared during their final IEP meeting, and what it does is that it reflects the latest accommodations that were agreed upon in their IEP. So if the student plans to attend college, they can schedule an appointment with the college's Office of Services and Programs for Students with Disabilities. There, they must identify themselves as a person with a disability that requires these accommodations. The college will review the SOP and they can determine what accommodations can be provided to the student in the college or university setting. So this is what it primarily is. As students now transition out of high school, we know that they're going to be gaining more independence, not just in their education and in their career paths, but also in making legal decisions. And one major shift happens at age 18. So when the law assumes that all young adults have the right to make their own educational decisions. And let's take a closer look at what this means for students that are receiving special education services and how families can prepare for this transition. All right, so under IDEA, educational rights transfer to the student at age 18. What this means is that now the student becomes responsible for their IEP, signing documents, making educational decisions. But what should schools do before the age of 18? They should, at least 1 year before the student turns 18, so by age 17, the IEP must include a statement that informs the student and family about the transfer rights. So they should provide you with guidance on what this means and what options are available for students who may need support. Now, you guys, as families, want to be able to prepare for this, right? And something that you can do is encourage self-advocacy skills. Help the students practice making choices about their education and their future. You want to also discuss supported decision-making options. So if your student needs assistance with decision-making, you guys can explore what supported decision-making agreements are. This allows students to receive guidance while also retaining their rights. And obviously, there's also the conservatorship. So if the student is unable to make independent decisions, this is always an option. But in order to maintain their autonomy, in order to help them be independent individuals and support them, remember there's always alternatives to conservatorships. And I know that in the Connections California website, there are tons of great videos that can provide you with information that you need in order to make these decisions. So I do urge you to look at those videos, previous recordings of great speakers that have touched on these subjects of conservatorship and the supported decision-making as well. Now, if the student chooses, they can also sign a document to transfer these educational rights back to the parents. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you how this process works. So here we have what is called the assignment of authority for educational decision-making. This is a form for California that I also included in the reference material that you can actually download. And you can find it in the official website of Disability Rights California. So once notarized, this form allows parents to continue to be active members of the IEP team, making decisions and signing the IEP document on behalf of the student. And usually districts are okay with this form. So this is something that you can definitely bring up and provide, so that you can continue to help your child to make these decisions, your youth. Now, while the IEP and IDEA provide structure support in K through 12 education, what happens after high school? Many students are going to rely on protections under Section 504 and the Americans with Disabilities Act, known as ADA, to ensure that they receive accommodations in college, in the workplace, and beyond. So let's take a look at how these laws support students as they transition into adulthood. And we're going to start off with Section 504. Section 504 is a civil rights law under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities. Okay, so it applies to any program or activity that receives federal funding. How does Section 504 support students in the K through 12? Well, in education, students can receive a 504 plan. Maybe you've heard of that, right? And this provides accommodations in order to ensure equal access in education. Some examples of accommodations that students can receive with the 504 plan is extended test time, preferential seating, maybe access to audiobooks, use of assistive technology. Okay, so this is how it looks in the educational setting. But what happens after high school? The biggest change is that there are no IEPs, there are no 504 plans in college. So post-secondary institutions are required to provide reasonable accommodations, but now it's up to the student to request these. And colleges and universities must follow Section 504 and the Americans with Disabilities Act to ensure that students have equal access, but services are different. Okay, so remember something very important. Students must be able to self-advocate. Colleges will not automatically provide accommodations. In order to receive support, students have to contact the school's disability services office, provide documentation of their disability, whether it's the SOP that we mentioned, medical diagnosis, or even past IEPs or 504 plans. They must request accommodations that allow them to access their coursework. So as a takeaway, remember Section 504 continues to protect students after high school, but the support is not automatic. Students must take the initiative to request accommodations in college and in work settings as well. While Section 504 applies to programs that are receiving federal funding, the Americans with Disabilities Act goes a little further. It protects individuals with disabilities, but in all areas of public life. So let's take a look at how ADA ensures accessibility in education, employment, and community in this one and in the next slide. So first of all, ADA is also a civil rights law, and it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in the educational setting. So whether it's colleges or universities, in employment, in public transportation, in public accommodations like restaurants, stores, hotels, government programs and services. So colleges must provide equal access to students with disabilities when we're talking about how ADA protects students that are in college. Okay, schools cannot deny access to programs or activities due to inaccessible facilities. And I'll give you examples of required accessibility. For example, buildings and walkways, elevators, there should be ramps, automatic doors. When we're talking about restrooms and parking, there should be accessible stalls and designated parking spaces. Even with athletic or campus facilities, there should be equal access to students, student events and recreation. Why does this matter? Because unlike K through 12 schools, we know that colleges don't create IEPs or 504 plans, but they still have to provide reasonable accommodations under ADA. Okay, but students, remember, must request accommodations through the college's disability services office. And parents with disabilities also have rights under ADA when accessing school event services and communication. So it applies to all people, not only to those that are attending the college or university. All right, so let's talk a little bit about access now. So access under ADA involves ensuring that programs, activities, and facilities such as university campuses are available to students and other individuals with disabilities. And this guarantees equal opportunities and accessibility for everyone, right? But what does accessibility mean? Well, access is more than just physical entry. Okay, it means that the students must be able to fully participate in their education and school activities. Schools and colleges must make reasonable modifications, accommodations to remove barriers without fundamentally altering the program. Okay, and let's talk about some examples. When we're talking about physical access, so if a class is, let's say, on the second floor with no elevator, the class must be moved to a ground floor location. If there's no elevator, it has to be accessible and it has to be in the ground floor location. When we're talking about inside the classroom, desks may be raised or adjusted so that a wheelchair can fit under them. Okay, so that's something else that can be done. Other accessibility supports, providing maybe captioning or sign language interpreters for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, ensuring digital materials and websites that are accessible for students that have visual impairments, and even allowing service animals on campus. Okay, so schools and colleges must provide access, but students must advocate for accommodations in higher education settings. All right, so while parents play a crucial role in advocating for their child's needs, you as parents, we know that are doing everything needed to advocate for them, but the ultimate goal is for you guys to equip your students with the skills needed to, advocate for themselves. And as they move toward adulthood, they're going to need to express those needs. They have to understand their rights and navigate the challenges independently. So let's explore how we can support this shift from parent advocacy to self-advocacy. All right. So remember, self-advocacy is for all students, regardless of the disability. And many parents, here at the Parent Center, we have many parents that often ask, how can they encourage self-advocacy for youth that have more significant disabilities? And the answer is personalized support, and ongoing practice. We always want to start early. For all students, including those with significant disabilities, decision-making can start with small choices. It can be choosing between two outfits, meals, preferred activities, expressing preferences through verbal communication, through gestures, through assistive technology, even teaching the cause and effect. For example, if I choose this happens. And this is ultimately going to help build that decision-making confidence. Also, fostering self-awareness. Every student can communicate their needs in some way, even non-verbally. So we want to encourage recognition of strengths by highlighting what the student enjoys and does well. So you can use visual supports, social stories. It can be role playing, and this is going to help them understand how to express their needs. You want to empower their voice. So even students with complex needs can participate in their IEP meeting at some level, using a communication device to say yes or no about a goal, maybe showing a picture or a job or activity they like to contribute to discussions about career or independence. So remember, parents and educators can model this self-advocacy by repeating their choices, by reinforcing those preferences. And transition assessments, as we had mentioned before, they can continue throughout high school. So they can really help identify ways that students can self-advocate based on their abilities. So don't forget, to request those transition assessments throughout the years in order to really get that insight and see that advancement, that progress that your child is making towards goals. Also, teaching disability rights. For students with more significant disabilities, families and educators can model advocacy. And this is by showing maybe how to request for help or for accommodations, using simple repeated phrases or even visual cues to teach self-advocacy in daily routines. Okay. And also asking for help. This is something that has to be normalized, seeking support. Some students may struggle with requesting help. So starting with structured ways of seeking assistance like hand signals, assistive technology, visual cards, this can help them express what they need help with. And also when doing so, praising the student when they attempt to communicate a need, and reinforcing that asking for help is something positive, that it's a positive action. So although self-advocacy may look different for each student, every student can participate at some level, okay? It can look different, but we want to continue to encourage it, and we want to start early, as mentioned. So no matter the child's disability, there's always going to be ways to encourage independence, even in small steps. And here, empower with student-led IEPs. So when students take an active role in their IEP meetings, they build confidence. They build self-advocacy skills and independence for adulthood. So this is what we're aiming for. We want to be able to say, my child is actively participating in their IEP. They're leading their IEP. And I know that here at Parents Helping Parents, they have great webinars on student-led IEP. So I would ensure and encourage you to take a look at those as well, which would be a great segment, a continuation to this webinar. Why encourage student-led IEPs? Well, this actually gives a voice in their education. It helps them understand their strengths and their challenges so that they can advocate for themselves. And they encourage decision-making skills early on. Now, how does it benefit the student? Well, it builds self-awareness and advocacy. It encourages goal setting. It prepares them for adulthood. The more involved they are in their IEP meetings, the more comfortable they're going to become making decisions about their future. Okay, so how can you as a parent support these type of student-led IEPs? Starting small. Students don't have to lead the entire meeting right away. You want to encourage them, like I mentioned before, by introducing themselves at a meeting, maybe sharing one goal and one strength, using a script, visuals, assistive technology if needed, and providing guidance, but letting them take the lead when possible. Something that I find many parents share is that they do that one-page profile. So they encourage them to either do a PowerPoint or printing out a page that introduces themselves. It tells them a little bit about themselves. So they can even get creative. Many students, like I mentioned, have created PowerPoints and they present it to the team, just letting them know what their goals and strengths are. And this is a great way to voice their needs, and their aspirations for the future. So can all students do this? Yes. Student-led IEPs can be adapted for all ability levels. For students with significant disabilities, remember they can use communication devices, visuals, gestures to participate. Teams can model self-advocacy by repeating their choices and reinforcing their preferences. Even small contributions can help build self-confidence and independence. And this is actually a chart that I stole from Melissa because I think it's a wonderful chart. 20 powerful strategies for independent living, education, and employment. So it has great examples of what you can do, life skills to develop, like managing personal tasks like laundry, ironing, basic sewing, preparing meals, maintaining their living space, like cleaning and organizing. When we're talking about communication skills, using a phone to make appointments or asking for help, writing a professional email or leaving a voicemail, shifting to problem-solving leadership, encouraging your young adult to take the lead in solving their own problems, or introducing those real-life scenarios where they can make decisions, consulting with you as needed. Okay, promoting self-driven expectations. So I know that Alyssa has access to this one. It's through the Think College, I believe. But I have also included the link in the reference material that I included. So you guys can access this great illustration. Now, remember, parents, you guys play a key role in helping your child prepare for adulthood. And by staying involved in the IEP process, planning early, and encouraging activities outside of school, you can support their growth. So teaching self-advocacy and giving them the opportunities to speak up is going to help build their confidence. And over time, shifting from making decisions for them to guiding them is going to allow them to take control of their future. Small steps now will lead to bigger successes later. So that's something that we want to take away this evening. And we really hope that this information, although short, has provided you with good tips and strategies in order to, contribute effectively to that ITP plan and making sure that it's robust and that it's really going to drive, to your child's success. And here we've gathered a list of resources for you to explore. Alyssa's going to be emailing to you. So I'm going to make sure that you guys are able to open up these links. So whatever I send her the material, you guys can navigate these links and you guys can explore them at your convenience. Don't forget to check out the Connections California website, as it has amazing information there. Tons of resources that have been curated just for you, as well as, videos, pre-recordings, that have been gathered for you so that you can start planning for this transition if you're in that stage. So you're going to have different pages here of resources. And again, I hope this presentation was valuable to you and it can help you towards a successful future. Remember, transition planning is a journey and your involvement makes a difference. So you're going to find, if you need any support, if I don't know if you guys are in Imperial, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego counties. If you are, you guys can always reach out to us. And Parents Helping Parents is also in your area and they can provide you with any information you may need. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Luisamaria Castillo. Those are a lot of words done in less than an hour. So I'm pretty impressed with all that. So thank you so much. And as Luisa said, we love resource-rich presentations, and there are a lot of resources in this one. And we will be sending out a PDF to you with those live links so you can access them. And I've also collected all the links I've been putting in the chat, and they will go out in the email that's sent to you as well. So I just want to draw your attention to the evaluation that is in the chat. I'll pop it in again right now. It's 4 quick questions. If you could just take a little quick minute and fill them out. You're getting lots of love and lots of thanks in the chat to Luisa. And let's just see if we can knock off a few of these questions. Would functional goals and supports be available to students who are not in life skills classes? They're in special day classes in high school, but still require these kinds of supports in order to successfully transition post-high school? Or are they only in severe needs classes? Is that where those are required? Is the high school allowed to delay these kinds of services since regional center provides supported employment after high school? So that's a long and kind of complicated question. Do you want to take a stab at it? Do you want me to take a stab at it?
Yeah, so definitely remember that no matter the placement of the child, I do see many times it will say independent living skills as needed, as appropriate. Functional goals are crucial for independent living, for independence when they exit out of high school. So no matter the placement, the law doesn't say anything about if they're in this placement, they can't have these type of goals. So if they're reflecting a need in functional skills, then that's, for me, assessments is always important. They shed a lot of information. So if assessments can be requested to see where the student is at in their functional skills, depending on the area, request these. These are, if we don't have that information, those results, they can't say no either. So really, we need to base ourselves out of something. So we can't just take no for an answer. Assessments are always going to give you the information in order to see if something is needed or not. So that's the route that I would go, but add as you can, Alyssa.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And the only thing is, are high schools allowed to delay any kind of services since regional centers provide supported employment after high school? Well, they're one of the overarching goals is for employment. So if you're building a robust ITP, no, we're not going to delay services that help the student realize their path to employment. Should we try another one? What's the expectation per state and federal code that we would have if special education classes do not cover the A to G credit requirement for college admission?
What are, sorry, what are give
So
me
what's the
the
expectation that we would have? And I think it's sort of like, well, this is why it's so wonderful that the law is now changing and that ITPs are going to be discussed in going into ninth grade, because Louisa did talk about course of study, and that course of study does talk about the different coursework that the student is going to take in order to either get, if they have a certificate of completion, if they're on this alternate pathway, which, by the way, we're having the woman from Sacramento County Office of Education come and give a presentation on the alternate pathway on Monday. So please tune into that.
That's great.
I put it in there, but that's why it's an important thing to be talking about these things, so you know what kind of coursework the student should take. And also, the other part of it is the college admission. What does the college really want? What's the college going to look at? There's another question about what about the modified and accommodated curriculums coming up a little bit later, and we may not be able to get to it. But is that's the same kind of thing, I would say. Where is the student wanting to go to school? So again, what am I doing after school? After school, I will, in their education or training goal, there should be some investigation as to what kind of school might really fit their needs. Have I answered the question, Lisa?
Yeah, I agree with that. And we actually had a webinar for our staff not too long ago talking specifically about this and the course of study that would align with it. So much information, and I feel that really just knowing exactly what the path is, like you said, and knowing what those expectations are from that school, that college, university, is really going to help you determine, what path to take. So I'll be happy to share that information with you, Alyssa, and we can add it, or I can add it to the resource page before sending it to you. And that's another way that you can dig a little deeper.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm just going to call people's attention to the link, which I will drop again into the chat with the evaluation. If you could please just click on it and fill it out, very much appreciate it. Should community organization representatives be present at the first meeting to discuss transition goals, or only after they've become involved in the student's IEP?
I mean, I've seen both. I've seen, for example, if they're included, it's because maybe they took their coordinator from regional center and they wanted them to be present. But I feel that many times you want to know who's going to be part of that team, discussing the assessments that are going to be requested. So if we don't know initially what path our youth is going to take, then we don't know what agencies we're going to involve. So if you have something set already that you guys have been discussing, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer here. It doesn't mean that you can't take anybody. If you're set on who you want to be involved, then be my guest. But many times this meeting is usually to kind of see where we're heading to and discussing assessments. And again, that video that I saw today from UC Mind Institute talking about all the different types of transition assessments that we many times don't know about, really just it's a huge scope as to what can be requested, and it's going to be determined, depending on the school district, but as long as you specifically request the areas that you want evaluated, then they should present you with options as to what they have available, what tools they have available.
Would that be listed in your list of additional resources on the second resource page? Okay.
So I'm gonna add, you know what? I'm actually gonna share it right now in the link in the chat.
Drop it in the chat, okay, and I will grab it and I will put it on my page to send out to folks as well.
Yes, again, it's under
And I'm going to take this opportunity, while Luisa's doing that, to thank everyone for coming this evening, to certainly thank Luisa for giving her time and energy and coming back to the Connections California screen to present to us. It's always such a pleasure to have her here, have her nice smiling face and all the valuable information she provides. I am now waiting for that link.
Here it goes. Okay,
Okay.
copy. That's the link. It's a YouTube video.
All right. I think I tried to put it on while you were talking, but I wasn't sure if it was the right one, so I wanted to wait and get it from you.
Oh, okay.
Because
Got
I
it.
just wasn't sure. But you know, those transition assessments, don't be shy about asking for them, because districts often have their own, as Luisa said, but there are lots more out there, and you can even be the one who helps to introduce some transition assessments to your team. And you know, you
Exactly.
find as a parent, if you are informed, kind, grateful for everything that's going on, and really a valuable member of that IEP team, and you're helping with some of those transition activities that might happen outside of school, like internships, which help the student to decide what it is they might want to do with their lives. When you'll become a respected member of the team, and the more you're respected, the more you'll be able to help develop a robust ITP. And you take all this information that Luisa has given you this evening, and you take all the resources that she provided. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And you go forth and you create a robust ITP. So thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks again, Luisa. Always a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
And
Likewise.
take care. Night,
Good
night.
night.